Hello and welcome, PPL fans. We're here today with pre-season power rankings. I'm here joined today by Lux. Uh,
Hello.
I am King L5. You may know both of us from last season doing Game of the Week. And we're still going to
Mm-hmm.
be doing that, but we're also doing some power rankings today.
Yep.
So, we want to start from the bottom and work our way up.
Let's do that. That sounds like a good idea. So,
All right.
at our bottom spot, we have Seabad.
Yes. So, Seabad, this draft is a little bit clunky in my opinion. There is a
Mm-hmm.
Zamazenta Crown, which is a great Pokemon. But then after that, it's hard to find another huge threat. I know Weavile is like pretty well regarded for its offensive typing and speed tier, but honestly, I don't think it's that great in Scarlet and Violet. I think it's much better in gens where Pursuit is available, like Oras and Sun and Moon.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some bulky Pokemon here that don't really do too much damage. Screamtail being like the poster child of this kind of idea.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few mons that are like really matchup fishy, like Hisuian Arcanine and Snorlax. You're not going to be able to bring those to too many games.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is a few bright spots on the team. Once again, the Zamazenta Crown is a great Pokemon. Then Hisuian Braviary, I think we're both pretty high on.
Yeah, I think Hisuian Braviary, especially as a Terra Captain, is very nice here. Um, I think that one has a lot of game-winning potential, just running away with the game in a kind of similar fashion sometimes as Quackleval, maybe, with the Esper Wing sets. And then you also have Tinted Lens sets with like Agility or like Sheer Force that you can abuse. Um, Something I actually quite like as well on this team is it has pretty good hazards. You have a Gliscor, you have a Screamtail, you have Hisuian Arcanine that can do it, but Gliscor Screamtail generally will get you through most matchups in terms of hazards. Um, Something I did notice about this team that I really do not like is for special offense, the team seems quite reliant on the Hisuian Braviary that we do both like. But other than that, it's really just like a Jolteon, and it drops off to like the Decidueye Screamtail, which is not very good in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I know you're a bit higher on Gliscor than me. I think Gliscor is like, yeah, it's great in OU, don't get me wrong. However,
Hmm.
this is not OU. Yeah, people see that, they bring Ice Beam. You know,
Yeah,
and at that point,
and
you're not doing too great. If they're scared of hazards, they'll bring heavy duty boots. You know, it's not the end of the world.
hmm, that's definitely fair. Yeah.
Yeah, something like a SD set could be useful. Like it's not a terrible
Mhm.
mon for sure, but I'm just not too high on it.
Yeah, and I do think losing Roost for it, it's also kind of big. It doesn't have the same type of longevity anymore that it used to do. It's a lot easier to chip down, bring down as well.
Yeah, for
So,
sure, for sure. And then actually, technically tied in our aggregate ranking is Onesie.
yes. So what we have over here is we have All Forms Ogerpon, which could have been really great. Unfortunately, it is not allowed to Terra, which makes it a significant bit worse. And for the rest of this team, our good friend Alex decided to lean very heavily, you could say, into Rain with uh, the Setter S Politoed and then a lot of abusers on this team.
Yeah, I feel like if you're gonna go so hard in the rain direction, it's worth the few extra points to pick up Pelipper now.
Yeah,
Just
I
the
would
better
definitely
setter.
agree.
But
Better setter and also better longevity, so you can keep Rain up for longer.
yeah, that being said, this does have some bright spots, right? Zapdos is one of the most consistent draft league Pokemon of all time. Like we have the
Mm-hmm.
numbers on that. This mon is the goat. Urshifu
Yep.
Rapid Strike, we're both very high on, and I think
Yep.
if you're gonna build an Urshifu Rapid team, this is probably a pretty decent way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after that, it does start to drop off pretty hard. I think Golduck on this team is like incredible value, especially Terra Water. I think that's definitely going to take some names. But
Mm-hmm.
Ogerpon is like so expensive here, and you can't Terra, which I feel like if you've ever used Ogerpon, you know how
Mm-hmm.
reliant on Terra it is. And I just don't see it as like a top mon without Terra.
I would definitely agree. I think something that's also good to be said about this team is it leans really heavily into rain, as mentioned, and that does fuck with one of Ogerpon's forms in the fire one, which really does not want to decrease its damage output whatsoever, as that is its main thing to have it going for it, especially when you also really do not want to have hazards on the field when you want to bring that mon. So I think that's also kind of a downside of having the Ogre Pawn on this type of team.
Yeah, like if Terra were available, like Terra Fire Ogerpon is like, it requires a lot of support, yes, but it brings the damage and like the
Exactly,
speed
yeah.
and the Trailblaze. It's a great Pokemon. But without the +1 and the boost to your Fire Stab, it's really not that impressive, I find. So, yeah. That being said, there is some bright spots. I think Talonflame with Hurricane in the rain with Gale Wings is a great option. A lot of times, you know, you're just
I
gonna
know you like
miss
Whimsicott
and
as
you're
well.
scared, but Rain can help that out. Basculation as well is great Pokemon in Rain. So like, there's good spots, but I just don't think it's that great.
I would have to agree, definitely. I think the hazard game is also kind of lacking. Like, you have spikes on Ogre Pawn, which most of the time you're not going to want to bring because you want to click buttons with the Ogre Pawn. You have a Clodsire, which can certainly set them. And you have an Arcaludon, which can set rocks, but then again, the Arcaludon also kind of wants to abuse the rain with like Electro Shot and Stamina Boost just setting up, which is kind of tough. I think you had something to say about this Arcaludon as well.
Yeah, so as you can see, it is not Terrad. So shout out to Aster J, my good pal. This guy definitely knows how to use Archaludon. And by this guy, I mean Onesie, not Aster
Yeah.
J.
Uh,
Anyways,
okay.
so we can move on to
Mm.
16th place.
Yeah.
We have a
16th place, yeah.
JV. Now, didn't this guy do pretty well last season?
I think he did make playoffs, so
Yeah.
maybe barely.
Now, we did a few, like, tiers of our
Mm.
power rankings because not everyone is quite in the same level of power, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so we kind of grouped Onesie and Seabat together as,
Yeah.
like, definitely, in our opinion, bottom of the league in terms of draft viability. But the
Yeah.
JV is a little bit of a step ahead. And you want to
He's a
explain a
little
little
bit of a
bit
step ahead,
why?
yeah. I mean, he has a great tusk. That's one thing that is probably one of the most consistent mons this gen in terms of what it's able to do. It's just such a good glue in providing both probably the best hazard removal right now. It's a good rocker. It's really fucking strong. This mod can kind of do anything. Um, After that, the draft does drop off a little bit. I do like Infernape a lot. I don't know how necessary it is, however, when you already have a Great Tusk that can provide you with very strong fighting attacks. The fire is nice, but I don't think it's necessary, and I think there was better options for that personally.
Yeah, me personally, I have used Great Tusk plus Infernape team, but that also had like a Torn T and a Hisuian
Mhm.
Samurai and like some really great Pokemon on there. And in this team, it's kind of lacking a little bit. So
Yeah.
like Empoleon is not quite as good as Hisuian Samurai, you know? And like that team also had a Goldango, you know?
Yep.
So like there's a big power discrepancy there. But I did enjoy using that duo, like the double fighting
Mhm.
core.
I definitely think double fighting is viable this gen, especially with how many viable darks there are as
Yeah,
well.
there's so many dark types and they're all so good.
Mhm.
So having the Mach
Yeah.
Punch is like really important in my opinion, as well as like Vacuum Wave for like Iron Bundle is a huge
Yep.
resource. That being said, you have an Empoleon, so you're not too scared about that. But
Hmm.
yeah, Latias I think is a pretty good Pokemon, underrated in my opinion. I know you are a little bit lower on it,
I'm
but
a bit skeptical, yeah. Without Terra, I could see it being similar to prior gens where it's not as good. It did get some nice buffs though, this gen, so
mm-hmm.
that remains to be seen, I would say.
Yeah, one thing I always really like about Draft is Healing Wish.
Healing Wish
And
is definitely very good,
they
yeah.
have multiple healing wishes, but again, there's not a great like win con that really wants to receive it
Mm-hmm.
outside of maybe Tusk, right?
Yeah.
Tusk can like break through a mon, trade some HP, and then come back later with a healing wish from like an Amorous.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's pretty good. But yeah, still towards the bottom of our list.
Yeah. One last thing I would like to say about this draft is I do like the hazards that it has, or at least the control options. You do have Empoleon and Great Tusk that can both set and remove hazards. You have Glamora, which can do the same thing as well, and you do have like a Sticky Web option as well with some good like removal blockers. So I do
Didn't
think that's nice. Just would have been nice if there was more to abuse that as well,
didn't
I think.
Empoleon lose defog though?
Oh, did it? That's so sad.
I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like, yeah, Glimora and Great Tusk should be good enough, right? Mortal Spin and Rapid Spin.
Yeah, true. It did lose it, so that is
This
quite
is so
unfortunate.
sad. Anyways, we can move on to Q, the Costa Rican.
Yep.
Now this
So,
team, we kind of agree, has a fantastic top three.
yep. So the top three on this team is Terrapagos, Meowscarada, Golingo. Terrapagos, really sick mon, I think. I think it is a little bit slept on because it's new. Terra Starstorm is obviously very strong. Uh, Rock Polish plus Meteor Beam sets are very strong. You have Calm Mind as well. The better multi-scale that it has is very nice. It's a great remover as well, has Toxic. It's kind of like Mew, where it has every coverage it wants in the game. And then you have Meowscarada to be able to set spikes alongside that and remove items that Terrapagos would not want to deal with. You have Golingo to block any removal for the spikes that you're setting up. And that's about where it goes downhill. So,
Yeah, then you look past that and you see Comfy, right? Now,
mm,
Comfy is pretty famous for being walled by steel types, and despite that, we've decided not to go for a Terra that hits steel types. So
yeah.
that's a questioning thing on my end. Uh, yeah. That being
Yeah.
said, Terra Fairy is pretty decent on that because a lot of times it is just
Mm,
lacking the power, and you can kind of
yeah.
get through that with a stab Terra. But
I think
still,
what I also wanted to say is I think there's also an opportunity cost to drafting Comfey this early just to Terra it. Like, yeah, you drafted Terra Comfey. You also could have had an Enamorus. So I think there was better options available
I
at
don't
the
know
time.
what order the drafts are in, but
Uh, should just be
if this is in the
it's on the
draft order.
dock. Yep.
But anyways, towards the latter half of this draft, you have Galarian
Yeah.
Zapdos, which is a pretty strong one.
Yeah.
Great defensive typing, but not really the move pool to take advantage of that defensive typing too much.
Hmm.
Kind of forcing into rest talk if you want to do that. Usually you're going to be seeing Scarf, Choice Band. I've seen
Hmm.
Citrus Berry a lot to deal with the Brave Bird recoil, but you
Yeah.
know,
I know. I as well have run like bulk up Trailblaze. I think that's a cool option. Uh,
yeah, for sure.
However, that said does like Terra a lot, which it cannot do here.
Yeah, and then Tentacruel I feel like is not that great. Him on top is pretty bad, honestly.
Yep.
Moltres I feel like is pretty good actually. Like that Mon,
I like
pretty
its
good.
defensive profile, yeah.
Yeah, especially ever since it got boots, it's
Hmm.
been a pretty good Pokemon. And
For
then,
sure.
the rest of it is kind of like whatever. Like Reganiclus, sure, it's bulky, whatever.
Yeah, they're
Um,
like alright mons.
yeah, there's a bunch of bulk.
Hmm.
Overall, top three great. The rest, it could use some work. Like if you
Yeah,
free agencies here, this team starts to look a lot better.
I would definitely agree.
All right,
Now, next up, I think we have Necro.
Necro
Uh,
Steve.
yep, Necro Steve up. So, what Necro decided to do is he drafted not one, but two wetters. In fact, he drafted Torkoal with Walking Wake and Venusaur as like a Sun Core, and he drafted Galarian Slowking with Chili Reception into Titan as kind of like a mini heal core, and facilitated that with a good amount of bulk through like Clefable and Earthworm, which um I think it's okay. I don't love it personally. I know L5 likes this team
Yeah.
more than I do.
So because it is an aggregate ranking, I was actually
Mm,
pretty high on this draft. And there's a few reasons why, right? So in Draft League, it's always good to build around win conditions. That's like what
mm,
I preach all the time. And this team has some win conditions, let me tell you. There's like Calm Mind Clef, Cosmic Power Clef, the classic Clefable things. You have Sun Walking Wake, which is so strong. Um, you have Terrakion, which is a great breaker. You have Satitan, which can, belly drum in the hail a little bit more easily
yep.
than you might expect. Venusaur, great speed control in the sun. It is weather reliant. That's 100% a criticism of the
Hmm.
team. But despite round one Torkoal being like one of the most crazy picks in this whole league, I
Hmm.
think it turned out really good, like for what it's worth. I like Crocodile. I think Clefable is underrated. Glowking, Galarian Slowking is very good, very annoying to face.
Agree there.
And then I do like how Mousehold can force some prep with Rocky Helmets, even if it doesn't come. It's like
Hmm.
pretty scary to like disrespect that thing, and then it comes, and then Population Bomb 2 it KOs everything. So
Yeah.
that's always nice.
Yeah, like you said, it is very weather reliant, and that would be my main criticism. I think weather is a very inconsistent strategy. I think if it's like an option you have on your team, I think it can be very good. However, when I think it is the main thing your team is built around, I start to like it a lot less personally, which is why I would probably rate it lower.
Yeah, like obviously fair criticisms, right? It's just I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In the end, this is our opinion. So,
but in the end, it doesn't even matter.
true.
All right, you
Uh,
want to move on?
Next up, we do have Jrii, um, who picked up one of the new Pokemon. If you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so Gouging Fire, right? Was this not the first overall pick?
Yes, this was the first overall pick, I'm pretty sure.
All right, so Gouging Fire, this is basically Zard X, but with booster energy. So this mon is
Mm.
really great, I think. The bulk is there, the typing is there, the coverage is there, the move pool, it's so good, man. Um, and then you can run boots, which Zardex would die for boots, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's such a useful tool. As well as you have magic bounce with Hatterene here, so like you can more reliably run those booster energy sets, get an attack boost right off the gate, and then Dragon Dance. This thing is so strong. Um, Now, this draft is kind of like Gouging Fire and then a bunch of a bunch of fat mons with hazards.
Yep.
There's Manaphy
Uh,
there as well, but like
and there's a Slither Ring as well.
there is Slitherwing's quite good. But for the
Mm.
most part, this is Hazard Stack Ting-Lu, Magic Bounce Hatterene, Spike Skarm, Spin Cyclozar. There's no Shed Tail in this league, so
Nope.
you're looking at a lot of utility and like maybe 2 3 mons that can take advantage of that necessarily.
Yeah. I think another issue with the team is the mons that can take advantage of like the hazards that you can set up are quite slow naturally as well. So I think especially this gen, that can be an issue because there's just so many like insanely fast threats, and you also have like booster speeds to worry about. So I think that can become an issue for this team as well.
Yeah, the speed control is definitely a bit lacking.
Hmm.
But that being
And
said,
and
Gouging Fire is broken, so I think it'll carry.
it definitely could. I think the last like thing I want to mention about this draft is you do have Gouging Fire and like Manaphy and Slitherwing for offense, but Gouging Fire and Manaphy both really like to set up, obviously. So I feel like the immediate pressure of this team could be quite low, especially when you're bringing like the top six with like Tinglu, Hatterene, and Skarmory, and I'll just kind of want to sit there and like their like Nuzzle and like Spikes and Stealth Rock. I
Yeah,
think the team can be kind of slow in that.
that was the main criticism we had of this team. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of utility, but without setup, you just don't hit that hard.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna need Slitherwing or like
Mm-hmm. Terramis Magius, I guess.
yeah, like that can be strong as well.
Mm-hmm. Or you'd have to run like Banded Gouging Fire or something like that. But
I mean,
it feels
you can
not as
run
consistent.
you can run Scarf in the sun as long as you can keep rocks up because you get the sun boost
True.
and the proto attack and your Scarf. So like that's an
Yeah.
option, but yeah, it's not dire, but it's not towards the top of our list yet.
Yeah.
All right.
For the next team, I think we have Killua,
Yep.
who mainly drafted, I think, mods that were already in the game, and then a Metagross and a Prim. So,
Yeah. So Metagross got some really cool tools this gen. Got Trailblaze. That's
yep.
great. And then Psychic Noise is another cool move.
Mm-hmm.
I think I
I
got
think
Psychic Fangs as well. A lot of
Psychic
Psychic Stab.
Fangs, Knock, and Stone Edge as well, I think, and Heavy Slam, which all are quite nice options.
Yeah. So definitely a big upgrade to Metagross in general. That being said,
Prim, I was gonna say I think Prim this gen is also quite nice. I think its typing in general is just really good this gen in terms of checking a lot of top tiers, and being Spadef in that regard really helps against mons like Darkrai and like Special Iron Valiant and Chiyu, for example, to be able to help check those. I think it's very good in that regard.
yeah, a lot of the threats this gen are like really threatening. So having that nice typing plus really great special bulk is always appreciated.
Yep.
Now, Annihilate, right? This mon is a great Pokemon.
Yes.
So you can run Scarf pretty reliably on this team. I feel like the main thing it's lacking is speed control, so having a good Scarfer and Annihilate is definitely appreciated.
Yeah.
Boost the Roaring Moon is like the only great speed control. With Booster Energy is pretty good though. I also enjoy
You
like
also have
Choice Band, stuff like that.
yeah. You also have Thundy, which can be Scarf. Obviously, you want to keep rocks off for that, preferably. But team is probably going to be somewhat reliant on Annihilate or Thundy being Scarf because of Roaring Moon being the only like speed control in that regard. So I think that can be quite challenging for Killua.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that this team does have is Terra de Dunsparce. And I think last season showed this mon is a threat, right?
That mon is very funny, I gotta admit.
Yep, a little quirky, but he does it. He does stuff.
He does like a very strong boom burst, and I do like that.
Yep.
I think Muck as well for 6 points is pretty decent. I think it's a solid budget poison. I do think this team appreciates not having to deal with toxic spikes, especially when Donphan is the only other remover for that.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on Muck. That mon got a lot of useful moves this gen.
Going to move on to our next team then? I think most has been said.
Yeah, sounds good. So, coming up next is a three-way tie. So, who do we want to go over first? I think we'll look at Daria first.
Yeah.
And for the record, the three-way tie is El Scizor, Frank Trod, and Daria.
Yeah.
Crazy how that worked out. But Daria first. So this team has a Palafin, and Palafin, in my opinion, is broken. So
I'd have to agree.
That's a great point of the team. Raging Bolt, a lot of people are really high on this Pokemon. I'm less so high, and I know you are as well. A lot of people are calling this like the second coming of King Gambit. It's not. I really don't think so. But we'll see. You know, we could be wrong. You could be right. Or, you know, maybe we're right. That being said, Thunderclap is a great move. You know, priority is always nice on a slow Pokemon. But at the same time, I think it's going to be plagued by a lot of the same problems that Mega Ampharos has. And that mon is not good.
No, I think just slow, bulky electrics in general tend to not be as good. I think having a ground type be able to switch in on your Volt Switch and then immediately threaten you back without you being able to do anything back. It's not great. Granted, this mon can obviously click Draco on those ground types, but like you said, Mega Ampharos showed us what can happen with that, and it doesn't look too good for him.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, the slow electrics that I actually like. How many are there?
I like Belly Bolt. Belly Bolt's
Yeah,
cool.
I was thinking Belly Bolt and, like, maybe Lantern on some teams.
Lantern, maybe Stunfisk, but that's
Oh, Sunfisk. But that's more of a ground
yeah,
type, anyways.
yeah,
You don't
exactly.
use that
So
as an
doesn't really
electric.
count.
Alright, anyways. Raging Bolt, we'll have to see. Cinderace, though, a great Pokemon in my opinion. I really enjoy stuff like Swords Dance with Libero, and then you just
Mm,
click Double Edge with Stab. I think that's a
yeah.
great set. Really enjoy breaking with that.
Mm,
Zarude as well is a great Pokemon. Got knockoff this gen, which is huge
mm,
for it. Like, absolutely huge.
yep. I think SD and Trailblaze as well gives us one more setup options than it had before, which is
For
very
sure.
nice.
Yep. Then, there's some breakers. Mamoswine and
Mm,
then Terra Sylveon. Both pretty strong
mm,
Pokemon. Not the fastest. Probably going to get outpaced in a metagame like this. But we'll see.
mm.
And then you have some fat guys, right? Cresselia, Quag, Galarian Slowbro. We can ignore the Noctowl. I don't think that's a real Pokemon. But
I don't
yeah.
see anything there. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Um, I will say something I did notice with this draft is other than the Raging Bolt and Sylveon, special offense feels kind of lacking to me. Like Sylveon and Raging Bolt are strong, but there's going to be matchups where Raging Bolt will not look very good. There's going to be matchups where Sylveon will not look very good, and I feel like you might struggle finding something consistent there in terms of special attacking. Um, and then on top of that as well, I think you have a lot of these really strong mons, but your main hazards are coming from Mamoswine that also just really wants to click buttons, in my opinion. So I think that's a little lackluster personally.
Yeah, mostly you're looking at Quagsire getting the hazards up, or just Cinderace court changing them back and relying on your
Mm,
opponent. And one thing I do like about this team is, Healing Wish Cresselia. I mentioned before I'm a big fan of Healing Wish.
mm,
Um, and Palafin is a great receiver of Healing Wish.
yeah.
That mon is so good at trading HP for KOs. Like, a full
Mm,
HP Palafin, it's a danger, you know?
yep. Can
And
easily wave crash through a team.
being able to just bring that back, yeah, like Banded Wave Crash is so strong,
Mm,
but you're taking recoil. But if you can bring it back to 100% HP, all of a sudden that endgame is looking very good for you.
mm.
So
The
overall,
same as well. Like you said with Cinderace, you have Double Edge as an option.
yeah, yeah.
Again, Lunar Dance helps with that. Flare Blitz becomes more reliable as well. So
Let's be real, you're running Pyro Ball.
yeah,
Keep it real.
I see people run both sometimes. So
Yep. Alright, so the next spot in our tie is going to go to Frank Trode.
hmm
So this team, it's got some good Pokemon, right? So I'm a big fan of Hydreigon, big fan of Quaquaval. I like using Scizor. Boulder is new, but it seems pretty strong with the booster energy speed. It's so fast, so hard to revenge kill if you can get an SD up.
mm.
That being said, it's not the strongest thing in the world, so I don't know if it's really warranting a round one pick necessarily, but in new toy syndrome, it is what it is.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of mons that I like as well in this draft, like Quaquaval and Hisui and Electrode with Terra, for example, I think are both very good. Um,
Yes,
but something that we both kind of noticed while we were making these rankings is this kind of looks like UU.draft,
it
where
does, yeah. Where's the big
none
heavy
of these,
hitters? Where are they
yeah,
at?
there's no real like big central piece to this draft. It's like kind of Iron Boulder, but like we said, it's probably not round one worthy, and it's more like new toy syndrome. So
Yeah,
where's the big mon?
yeah. The good thing that you can get at that is you kind of spread out your points a little bit more. You have a lot of
Hmm,
more viable Pokemon to bring.
yeah.
So you have more options than maybe some other drafts, but at the same time, those options are not quite as good on the high end.
Yeah.
That being said, I like the team overall.
I think it's a fine team. Yeah.
You want to move on? That was pretty
Yeah, we
brief,
can move
but I
on
think we
to
covered everything. El
the
Scizor, rounding out our three-way tie for this
yeah.
part. So Latios got some great buffs this gen.
hmm
Luster Purge now has a 50% spit F drop, so call it Seed Flare Light. You know, that's always
It
nice.
already had that Luster Purge.
Yeah, it
It's
did,
just
but the
now,
move got
yeah,
buffed.
yeah,
So like now it's stronger than Psychic and can drop, which is a
hmm
great tool. I did
yeah.
lose Mystical Fire though, if I'm not mistaken. So that's like,
It did, which is like somewhat unfortunate, but it did still keep Thunderbolt and Aura Sphere, which should still cover
yeah, the coverage
like
isn't
the
bad.
steel types and then the flying steel types as well.
And then Excadrill plus Sand, I think it's a good combo this gen. And then Hawlucha, I'm really high on Hawlucha, just overall.
Hawlucha is definitely very good on this draft. I do like it a lot, especially defensively, which we talked about. This one is very good. Just being
Yeah,
able to send it in like an Urshifu and take nothing is really funny.
yeah. On
I
a team
also,
like this, you do have Glare and Weezing, but
mm,
Hawlucha is also a great defensive piece. While also, people have to prep for the offensive set. You always have the
yeah,
option of that Fairy Surge into Mystic Seed, Unburden,
yeah.
Sword Stance. Not the easiest to prep for.
Mm. I do also like that the Brambleghast is on here. I think Brambleghast is a pretty decent mon in the Scarlet Violet meta, where it can get up spikes. It has a lot of like disruption tools to its disposal to just annoy teams for a while and be able to keep the spikes up as well by being a spin blocker.
Yeah, for sure. Something like Volcarona as well is like kind of hit or miss,
Mm.
especially in a league like this where it can't Terra. I think
Yeah,
it's pretty easy to prep for overall.
I would have to agree. Like, what I will say is that I do like that Alucha and Volcarona both pressure a lot of Drill's checks to an extent,
That's
either
true for
in
sure.
they're super effective or they share common checks. So I do like that a lot.
Yeah, and one thing I do like about this team, like Latios, great breaker, and you have a way to get it in very reliably with Alamomola, right? Flip
Mhm.
turn the Pokemon. So that's a nice piece for this team.
For sure.
As well as like you can get your sand up with Tyranitar, go Aloe, flip turn to Excadrill. It's like a great mon as like a way to get in your offensive threat. Aloe is never
Mhm.
doing something by itself, but it's a great supportive piece.
So next up on our rankings, I think we
Yeah,
have Don Fanatic.
we do. All right, so I think I was a little higher on this team than you were.
Mm-hmm.
So this team has a bunch of fraudulent Pokemon in both of our opinion. We both agree.
Yeah.
Urshifu Single Strike is the worst Urshifu. I will fight
Yep.
anyone about that. But Iron Moth, again, not the greatest. This one is a little bit better in my opinion, but again,
Mm-hmm.
not a great piece. But I think Kyurem is like so good. I think it's really, really good. Now you
I
seem a
think
little bit less convinced, but
I'm not convinced yet. I think the loss of Roost is definitely big for it. I think it could struggle a lot more because of that. I do think that the Baxcalibur light sets essentially with the like loaded dice, skill shot, icicle spear, DD can be very good, but in that regard, I think Baxcalibur is more streamlined for that. I think the thing that set Kyurem aside was mainly special sets, which are still good with like Specs and Scarf, maybe a bit less good with uh without Roost, in my opinion.
I think the boot set definitely takes a hit in viability. But
Mm,
there's also stuff like sub leftovers, right? Taking advantage of
yeah.
that pressure ability. Yeah, you can really do some cool stuff with Kyurem this gen.
Yeah.
Gardevoir, another great Pokemon.
Mm,
Cleavor, I think is a little bit mid, but it can get the rocks up while keeping offensive
mm,
pressure. Regieleki is a good matchup fish, you know?
Yep.
And you can always double Aleki into Shaman, for example, to come in on those ground types. Because when Regieleki's in, it's like so hard to not just go to your ground type, right? It's such an obvious play. You can really take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And
Especially with Terror Shaman as well. I think that's a very nice combo.
yeah, Shaman's like, I think in my head, anyways, it seems really strong.
From what I saw from it, I think I don't remember where, but I know I saw it around somewhere and it was pretty good.
I know in Clash of Kings, Shaman was like
Mm.
one of the best Terramons in low tier, maybe the best Terramon.
Yeah.
So like definitely, I think it'll be quite good. Stuff like SD, yeah.
Hmm.
What is this? Terra Ground, Fire, and
In
Grass.
grass, yeah.
Yeah, so like that's pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
That
No,
being
I
said,
definitely agree. I think the Shaman is good.
these top four mons, Urshifu, Iron Moth, Corviknight, Gastrodon, all of them are frauds. All of them. But it doesn't matter
Absolutely.
for me. It doesn't matter. I think I still like the draft.
I think overall the draft comes together,
It's like
but the individual pieces on
yeah,
are kind of mid.
something something some of the parts, the whole is
Yeah.
greater, whatever. You know the line. All right, I think
Uh,
we can move on to
mm,
Shroom.
Shroom. Yeah.
Yes.
Shroom, I think, has gotten one of the best like mid-round picks in round four in Amorous. How that was still there. It's kind of crazy to me.
Highway robbery is what I call it.
Yep. And Garchomp, Hisuian Samurott, and Amorous is definitely very strong. However, outside of that, I think the draft becomes quite mid, personally.
Definitely. I think this is hard carried by that offensive trio. But that
Yeah.
offensive trio is so nice. Like, let me tell you.
I think all three Mons just have a lot of options, and all three Mons are incredibly consistent at what they do. So,
Yeah, for sure. And then you have a little bit of wild card in Mew.
mm,
And then there's not much else after that, I'll be honest. I think Fortress is maybe the worst Pokemon in draft.
mm,
I know some people will disagree with that, but yeah. Okay, obviously there are Pokemon that are worse than Fortress that are allowed in draft. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But in
but you're
terms
paying
of
less
like,
for those, you know?
value and like how good they are in the actual game, Fortress is so bad, man. I've never seen it do a single thing. It's so
Yeah.
bad. It's so bad. But anyways,
Mm,
Sinistra is a unique piece. Not a lot of
yeah.
mons can do what this guy does, but like Hitmonchan, Zangoose, Arbok, Stonjourner, these are not real Pokemon. Let's keep it real.
Mm.
Let's keep it a
There's like
buck.
Entei Raikou, which is like kind of funny having two of the
Got the
beasts.
dogs.
They're both kind of mid, however, which is unfortunate.
Yeah,
And you didn't also
go ahead.
Raikou's like okay, I think.
Yeah, especially because it can scald. Yeah, I
Mm.
think that's a really big piece for it.
I will say points are taken off for not also taking the Suicune. So,
True.
um,
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about this other than that
no.
offensive trio is great and the rest
Mm.
of it is not that great. But
I would agree. I think it kind of speaks for itself as well. Like you have Garchomp, Hisuian, and Samurott that can set a lot of hazards. Mew as well to an extent. You have really good pieces to take advantage of that. It's just the way it's supported is not as amazing as it could be.
yeah, for sure. Like a few free agencies, this draft could be like one of the best in the league. But
I
it's
would
it's
definitely
gonna
agree.
take some
Yeah.
free agencies in my opinion. All right, I want to move on to Vepsis.
Yes. So this
Well,
was another draft that we disagreed a bit on. I had Pepsis a lot lower than
yeah,
L5.
a lot lower. Let me
Yeah.
tell you, I really hard carried this placement. So,
So
why do you think it's
do you
bad?
want
Let's start with that. That's more fun.
so to start off, I do really like the double Iron Core of Valiant and Treads. I think both of those models are very good, very consistent at what they do. Valiant, great Revenger with like booster energy as well, and also just a great setup threat. But options for Calm Mind, options for Sword Sands. Life Orb Valiant is a great breaker in my opinion with mixed sets. Um, Rotom Wash and Noivern are good in that regard to help get in the Valiant, get in like some of the other breakers, and just pivot between each other as a little Voltone core. Breloom, I think, is underrated. That mon is really strong, especially with loaded dice now and like Technician Bullet Seed. Small hits really hard. Mach Punch is a very good revenging tool this generation where all the dark types are. Um, but those are kind of the mons I like. And then the other half of this team just feels incredibly meh to me. Like I don't like Deoxys defense here personally. Gengar, Gengar to me is kind of the CEO of I do 90% to a mon and die. And
That's a good way of
Haxorus
putting it. That's so funny.
and the Haxorus and Alolan are like okay at what they do, but I don't think they're great, personally.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely fair. However, why do I think it's good, right? So Iron Valiant, I feel like, is one of the better Pokemon in the format. Maybe like
Hmm.
top 5-ish, maybe top 3 if you're on a good day. Iron
Hmm.
Treads, I think, is fantastic. I think Iron Treads plus Rotom Wash is like so much utility fit in 2 Pokemon. Like that,
Yep.
it's so efficient, that little duo. And then I think Noivern is pretty good, especially with Terra. I feel like Terra Normal Boom Burst, that's always a threat. And then Terra Fly, it can hit pretty hard, even though it doesn't have the greatest special attack stat.
Hmm. It makes
You,
up for it by
yeah,
tearing.
and like the coverage is great, the speed's great. Yeah, the move pool is really strong. And
Hmm.
then Breloom, right? Breloom, you touched on this. I think it's like incredibly anti-meta, which is
Hmm.
really great. Now, after these top 5 for me, it does drop off. You're definitely right on that. But that being said, you can only bring 6 mons anyways, so you really only need
Yeah.
6 mons that are good. So I feel like those top 5 and then a Deoxys with spikes, that could be good because
Hmm.
Rotomosh is forcing switches. Breloom, the priority, appreciates that spike chip. Iron Valiant
Hmm.
appreciates the spike chip so much. Stuff like that. It's really nice. Gengar, it's a decent breaker. It's like, I feel like Miss Magius and Gengar are the same Pokemon, but you pay much more for Gengar.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of putting it as well.
Yeah, I feel like they're carbon copies basically for what you
Hmm.
get. And then like Alolan Muck, I feel like is not that great in SV. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it can do stuff, but it can also just kind of be useless. It depends on the matchup.
Yeah. I think Alolan Muck kind of suffers from a lot of strong physical mons also being introduced. Like there's stuff like Darkrai, but it's also not switching into something like a Chew, for example. And for a mon with a
For
lot of
sure.
Spadef, that's kind of eh.
I mean, it's also Chi-Yu, right? Not a lot of
Yeah,
mons
like
can like switch in anyways.
that's definitely true.
All right, I think that's enough for Vepsis. We can move
Hmm.
on. All right, we have a 2-way tie for 4th place.
Two-way tie, and it's the two lovers as well. We have playing Jack or Gray, as people might know him.
Yeah, you want to start with Gray?
Sounds good. Now, I think Gray has a lot of very good pieces in Speedboost Blaziken, Iron Bundle, Necrozma, like King Gambit. These are mons that can very easily just run away with a game, and I personally do like that a lot as well. You have Kilowattrel as well, which gives you really good speed control, especially when you do have like Speedboost Blaziken on this as well. Uh, Hydrapple is a new mon that could be kind of interesting. I think it has the potential to both be very good and be very bad in certain matchups, kind of like matchup fishy in that regard. I think Terra Rhyperior is interesting as well. Uh, we both kind of disagreed on the Terra types that were picked, but overall, I think it's a cool option personally.
Yeah. So this team, it definitely has ways to win, right? I think
Hmm.
Bundle. I was pretty low on Bundle when the gen first dropped. I thought it might be a little fraudulent, but it proved me wrong. This mon is great. Blaziken, it's all right. I think the speed boost is definitely a valuable tool. King Gambit, it can't tear in this league, which is, kind of whatever. It's a bit of an overpay, I think.
Yeah.
15 points for it, right?
definitely.
That being said, you still have some great mons on this team. I think we
Mm.
both agree that Kilowatchel really should be getting the Terra in this team.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I was kind of a Kilowatchel hater until Mount last season kind of busted it out and was like the MVP of his team. That was pretty cool to watch. But
Mm.
yeah, I think this team overall, it has some good pieces. Like, it has good bones, you know?
Yep. Strong bones. The muscles on top of him could use a little work, maybe, but has a very
Yeah,
strong foundation, I think.
for sure, for sure. Then we can look at Ellie over here.
Mm. Which I personally think it's kind of similar. I think this team has a very strong foundation in Dragapult, Iron Hands, Heatran, Lando. Um, and just after that, the team becomes a bit less strong in that regard. Like you have an Araquanid for webs. I don't think any of your top four really like to abuse that personally. You have a Alolan Ninetales for Veil. You could Sword Stance with Iron Hands, for example, behind Veil, but Iron Hands also already has the bulk to pretty much live any one hit and then kill and return after a Sword Stance. So it feels a little bit unnecessary unless you want to run like DD Dragapult every week, but it doesn't sound too amazing to me.
Yeah, the reason why this draft is so high up is because the Mon quality is overall pretty high, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dragapult, I think, is pretty easily top 2 in the format.
Yep.
You can make an argument either way, but it's a great Pokemon, always able to do something. The great speed tier, you know. The coverage is insane.
Mm.
Iron Hands, another Pokemon that's just, you're never going to have a bad Iron Hands matchup. Like, it can always find a way to do something. Now, Heatran a little bit less so,
Exactly.
right? Heatran is a great Pokemon offensively. I love Heatran
Yep.
offensively, but I always recommend Double Steel with Heatran for a very good reason. This mon does not check anything this gen. It's like,
Mm.
you can check maybe like Chi-Yu because it lacks coverage, but like even
Yep.
then, Dark Pulse is like obliterating you. Like ground coverage
Mm.
is so like ubiquitous. That's a big word. I'm proud of myself for that.
Yeah.
But
Good job.
this mon does not check any of the things that it used to check. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah,
So
like
it's more of
ground
an
coverage
offensive
and
piece.
fighting coverage is just so common now.
Yeah, I love Scarf Heatran, but like defensively, it's not great.
Mm.
Landorus, again, like this Pokemon used to be a little bit better at checking the things that it wants to check. Nowadays,
Mm.
it's just maybe a little bit not bulky enough. It's still great,
Yeah.
right? It's a Lando T, reliable rocker. The Scarfer is great.
Mm.
Uh, that being said,
I think,
you wanted to say something?
yeah. Personally, I think it misses rock polish a lot as well. I think if it still
100%.
had that, the offensive sets would be so much better. But without
100%.
that, it really lacks, in my opinion.
All right, so those top four. Great,
Yeah.
right? And then you look at Araquanid, you're like, okay, sure. Like, what are we cooking
Mm.
here? You look at Superior, like, okay, I like Superior. The speed tier is nice. You know, contrary Leaf Storm, you know, it's good,
Mm.
right? Alola Ninetales, Veil is great. You know, and then like the last three are kind of whatever to me. Lycanroc Dusk, I feel
Yeah.
like is overhyped, let's say.
I would agree. Yeah.
But
I think
okay,
Kasui and Quillfish is kind of all right.
yeah, I
In
think it's all
some
right,
of
bringable for
the
sure.
mons that are allowed.
Okay, but those four mons, let's say,
Yeah.
are they ever really gonna do that much? Like Superior is the one you can argue, yeah, in a certain matchup, Leaf Storm is going to be very strong. Glare is
Mm.
great, Subseed, you know, you have options there. But like, what's taking advantage of the Veil on this team? I know you mentioned this already, so I'm not going to go
Yeah.
too far into it, but there isn't that big setup sweeper that's going to just sweep the game on the spot
Mm.
because you have Veil up. Yeah, I feel like there's definitely got to be something out there that can abuse Veil better than Araquanid, right? If the plan
Yeah.
was to get Veil, you can definitely get something better there.
I would definitely agree. I think overall, though, the individual mons on this draft are just so good. They don't like hinder each other in any like large way that the draft itself can carry itself, but it does require some work uh, in terms of how you go about prepping your games and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So now we have what you could say is our big three,
Yes.
because we had 3 drafts that we thought were definitely better than all the other ones.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty
Um,
big, like, noticeable gap between these top 3
yeah,
and everyone else. So let's start with Dr. Slaking. So
and in this draft,
we have Darkrai, Torn T, Azumarill, Baxcalibur. These are all great Pokemon, right?
mm-hmm,
Then Jirachi is pretty versatile this gen. They got a lot of tools. The
mm-hmm,
typing is there. Yeah, it's great. And then Sandy Shocks is another Pokemon I'm pretty high on. Quillfish I
mm-hmm.
do enjoy. Delphox as well. I feel like has surprised me in how good it has been.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think especially something that I really like on this team is I think it has a lot of ways to break through other teams for Darkrai, in my opinion. Like for fighting types, for example, you have a Torn, you have an Azumarill, you have a Jirachi, you have a Delphox. And for fairies, you have the Jirachi again. You have like spikes and T-spikes from your Sandy Shocks and Quillfish. And Baxcalibur is also something that pressures fairies very well, with them generally being switch-ins onto it. And then dark types, again, you can U-turn on them with your Tornadus. You have a Terra, Hisuian Decidueye, which can do some work. You have an Azumarill. I think there's a lot of ways to help out Darkrai on this draft, and I really like that personally.
Yeah, that's something we really enjoyed about this team. I think Torn is a great Pokemon. Just overall, this mon is so
Hmm.
like useful to a team.
Yeah,
Like the ground
I would
resist,
definitely agree.
invaluable. Knockoff U-turn, great utility. And then Hurricane just hits hard. Bleak Wind, I feel like sometimes you want to run Bleak Wind, but a lot of times you'd prefer the extra power of Hurricane.
I actually prefer Bleakwind a lot, just because.
You
Uh,
scared? You scared? Don't want to
no,
miss? I
it's
get it.
actually for probably the a reason you haven't heard before, because I actually like it for the speed drop. So
No, no, no.
the
You're lost
the
in the
way I think
plot.
of
You've lost it.
now, the way I look at it is like you get similar damage from both. Would you rather have a 30% confusion on
Yes.
your strong move or
Yes.
30% speed drop? I
Confusion
would
every
say the
time.
speed drop.
Every time. But
If they hit
anyways,
themselves, yeah.
anyways,
But other
anyways,
than that,
anyways. This team does
yeah.
have some win cons as well. Belly Drum Azumarill is a
Mm,
great thing to have.
mm, yeah.
Baxcalibur, obviously, is just good. Dragon
Mm,
Dance, Swords Dance, it's great. Then Jirachi
mm,
can do a bunch of things. Cosmic Power, Calm Mind, whatever.
mm.
I feel like
And
this
you also have
team,
Darkrai Torn as well with
yeah,
Plot,
this
both.
team does abuse the hazards of Sandy Shocks quite efficiently.
Mm,
So I do like that about the team.
for sure.
All right, so I don't have too much more time here, so we gotta get on going. Let's look
Yes,
at
sir.
Addison. This is our top 2. So Addison,
Yep.
right?
And we definitely did not put Addison second just to not have her at first.
Well, no, you're gonna see our first place. That team is broken. But so Addison, right? Deoxys Speed, making its grand return, right?
Mhm.
This thing has been banned so often, and now new gen, we try to test it
Mhm.
out a little bit. I think it's gonna be really good.
I would have to agree. I think Deoxys Speed is a crazy mon personally, especially since it got Psycho Boost back as well this gen.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, very strong move. Okay, so
so
there's some other mons that I think are
mhm.
really, really good. Greninja, Dragonite, Swampert, and Tinkaton. I think they all do their job incredibly well. I really
Yeah,
enjoy all those Pokemon. They're like tried and true. They're
mhm.
definitely good.
Very consistent. Yeah,
Grant especially.
personally,
Go ahead.
personally, I would say I'm also a very big fan of Mienshao. I've used that mon a lot, also in this gen now, and I think it's safe to say that mon is still very good in my opinion.
All right, all right. I do think Ursaring as well is a great Terra user.
Hmm.
You can defensive Terra with the bulk up rest talk, or you can just
Yeah.
Terra normal, get that quick feet, guts, whatever. You're gonna kill something.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, Ursaring is definitely very strong here. Serena's the other Terra Captain is a little bit whatever, I'd
mhm,
say. But
yeah, it's like definitely a non-factor for me.
mm,
So the only main criticism I have of this draft, right? What is this
mm.
Volcanion doing here? I can't figure out what his job is. Because, like, is
I
it
have
the
it less so
offensive
personally.
water? No, you have
But
Greninja. Is it, like, more of a bulky piece? No, you have way better bulk on this team that you'd rather bring. So what is it there for?
I think an offensive fire type is very nice on this team personally to help out Greninja and to bait out certain mons.
Yeah, but, like, it's kind of a slower fire type. So it's not.
It is, yeah.
So what are the main resists that you need out of your fire type? You don't need a steel resist. You got that covered. Fire resist? No, you're chilling, you know. But anyways, I think
I do
the
think it's a good Scald resist at the very least for this team. Because
that's fair
otherwise you're
enough. Yeah,
throwing in Serena and Dragonite on that.
more so probably Tinkaton. But yeah,
Yeah, fair.
I mean Covert Cloak Serena is like always an option if you're like that scared
Mm,
of it, or you know Ursaring to absorb the burn. You know,
true.
I'm memeing a little bit. Volcanian's still a good mon, but like
Yeah.
I do think this draft is kind of like top six is like really strong. The rest of it is some good supporting pieces. But you know, it is what it is.
And now for our number one team, we have
The goat.
the L5 pick of Mount Hay.
This is my goat. Okay, okay. Look at this team though. Look at it. Spectre, broken. Like maybe the best Pokemon available, right?
I personally disagree with that.
Okay, but like Draining Kiss is so valuable for it. Like
It definitely is, yeah.
it can always win every matchup, right? Maybe not every matchup. Okay, some of those bulky
Maybe not
normals,
every
some of
matchup.
those bulky normals are crazy, but
Mm,
you have a Sneasler right there, right? You can take advantage of that, like prep forcing. Like if they have to bring their bulky normal, you can take advantage of it so easily with this Ursaluna, the Sneasler, you know, even
the
Rillaboom, you
Chiyu
know.
as well.
Chiyu less so because they're all gonna be like split F, right? The
Less so, but
Sneasler's the
still.
main thing. Spectre plus Fighting type is like a offensive combo that's like it's been around since Spectre
Mm,
dropped, you know. And then
yeah.
Chi-Yu, another great breaker. Blastoise with Shell Smash, sheesh. And then Rillaboom is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time, especially in draft. This one of the easiest win cons to set up, in my opinion, with SD Glizzy Glide. Now, it's taken some nerfs over the years, but I think it's still quite good.
I personally also really enjoy Diancie on this draft. I think that mon is very consistent this gen,
Yeah,
especially just as a hazard setter. Now with Encore, Baton Pass as well. So
yep.
I think that mon is definitely very solid.
It's like a lot of these drafts, I can point out a few mons that I'm like, well, I don't know about this Pokemon. This one, I mean Galvantula, I guess, but like having
Even then,
the
Galvantula with
threat
webs is
of
very
Webs
nice.
plus Chi-Yu, or like Webs plus Ursaluna, allowing it to outspeed a lot of those like mid-speed Pokemon. It's just so threatening. You have to respect it. Like it's not like the other team that had Webs. I forget which one it was. It was like Vikavolt plus like not much that can really abuse Webs. This team can abuse Webs, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Blastoise has no reason to be bad in SV. It should be so good.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
So
I just like this whole team. Nothing
yeah,
more to it.
I'm a little bit less high on this team, but I can definitely see all the merits behind it.
Yeah,
Like I said, I'm not as high
you
on
say you're
Spectre,
less
for
high, but
example.
you still put it first in your rankings.
I
So
did still put it first. Yeah, I thought your criticisms of some of the other teams are fair. Like overall, this feels like the most complete team, I would say. Even if I do have um, some things about it that I'm not as fond of as you, I do think as a whole it is the most complete.
go ahead, roast me. What's bad about it?
I mean, personally, I'm not a big fan of Chiyu. I think that Mon could be like its design inspiration, a little bit matchup fishy. Same with like Spectre and Rillaboom and Ursaluna as well to an extent. I think they're all a little bit matchup fishy. I don't think they're too bad in that regard,
Yeah,
but
that's definitely fair. I just think that most of the time you're never going to run into a matchup that's bad for all three of them. Like, one of them is going to
that's
be really
definitely true.
good for sure.
That's definitely very true.
All right, I
So,
think that's pretty much it.
yep, I think that
Uh,
covers all the drafts. So,
maybe
our order is probably on
shout out to
screen
the editors.
at
We
some
can put
point.
the whole order yet.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't have much more else to say. How about you?
Me neither. You will see us back in like 2 weeks for post week 2 power rankings. So
All
we
right,
will
and we'll
see
be
you then,
doing
and we will see
game of
you
the
for
week in the meantime.
exactly.
All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you later.